Hello and welcome to the Couch Coven. We are your hosts, Teddy and Laura, and today we are talking about shame. How you doing today, Teddy?
Um, I'm good. I'm doing well.
That sounded like it took you off guard a little bit.
It did. No, but that's okay. I have had a pretty chill morning. I've done some podcast editing. I had to run an adult errand because I'm
Ew,
an adult.
I'm so
And
sorry.
honestly, it was okay. I was closing a checking account, which means I have an envelope full of cash. Which,
Oh, cool.
yeah, other than that, I'm chilling. I ate a savory, which was amazing,
Ooh, a
aka hot
savory
pocket.
Pop-Tart. Oh, got it. I was like, wow, that sounds so exotic somehow.
I skipped my morning journaling because I did it the last 2 days, and I said, "You know what? It's okay. I'll give myself a little bit of a break because I wanted to get some other stuff done." But yeah, that's been my morning. So how have you been doing today?
Good, good. I have had a pretty relaxed morning. Just doing some research for podcasts and then hanging out with my cat, made a nice breakfast. Had some
Nice.
fun. It's been lovely. Actually, what you said reminded me that I need to be journaling more because I
Mhm.
journaled, I think, since I was living in Virginia. I like got here and been like, what do I do now? Like all my routines. Like I haven't done yoga. I've just been like floating. So anyway, you reminded me I need to get back on my journaling regimen. So thank you.
It's been difficult for me to keep up with it. Kind of gets me back into the routine doing this thing called morning pages, where
Mhm.
in the morning you just set a timer for 10 minutes, and it's not a focused journaling, it's more just a stream of consciousness, and it sort of helps clear out your head.
Cool.
It helps me introspect and reflect and just sort of get out everything that I'm thinking right there at that moment. And then if you want to
Yeah.
continue journaling, you can. I find that's nice because it gives me a structured time and like time limit. So I'm not just in
Yeah.
this weird like limbo type of
Yeah.
thing.
Cool.
Anyway,
I
yeah.
love that. That's awesome. I'm gonna give that a try. Because I feel that too, where it's like just sitting down to journal and then I'll just sit there for 5 minutes not knowing what to write because I feel like I have to journal about something specific to be productive. And it's like, nope, just write down what's in your stupid brain.
Just write down what's in your brain. Yeah, I like the stream. It usually turns into a stream of consciousness,
Yeah.
but having that kind of as the set topic is nice because then yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
to try and come up with journal worthy things.
Yeah. Yeah, and for our listeners, if you hear me use self-deprecating things like stupid and stuff, like if I'm talking about, I promise you it's for comedy. I don't think these things about myself. That leads us into our topic today of shame. Shame has been the biggest thing for me in regards
Hmm.
to haltering me on my journey for healing. Shame has been the big thing that feels like a big roadblock. So
Hmm.
do you want to start us off with our definition of shame?
Yeah, I can start us off with our definition. Well, the definition of shame is an emotion triggered by consciousness of wrong behavior that is considered integral in social and moral human function. It is a morality based emotion, so it's incredibly contingent on socialization and our society as a whole. I do want to mention most of our research, at least for this episode, is from individualistic societies. Collectivist societies have different emotions than individualistic societies. And so our shame might not be the same as one of those cultures, just to put that out there if anybody wasn't aware. According to a 2023 study at the University of Trento, which is in Italy, shame activates the left anterior insula of the brain, known for emotional cognition, as well as a group of sections known as the pain network, which explains why this emotion feels unavoidably painful. Emotions are felt through the nervous system, so they bring about physical sensations, which is part of the reason we try to avoid them.
Mhm. Yeah, and something that's interesting is that shame is so connected to morality because it's what
Mhm.
is used to sort of help shape morality in society. There's
Yeah.
something called the Kohlberg's stages of moral development, and it starts with a reward and punishment system in pre-conventional morality when you're a young kid
Mhm.
and your parents use reward and punishment to kind of teach you things like, no, don't do that, that's bad. There's punishment. Yes, do this. Here's a reward, and that's how we kind
Mhm.
of learn morality as a child, and then as we grow, we then, get into school and get further into society, not just in our childhood homes. And then that grows to conventional morality based on law and order and social rewarding, something called good boy attitude, where, which I don't like. I do not like that term. Good boy attitude is is where we use the reward of society to guide us. So like for
Uh-huh.
instance, if it happens to be a really popular thing in your town to help out at the local animal shelter or something like that, and it's
Mhm.
like, okay, everybody do their one day a month at the local animal shelter, and then there's a sort of a societal pressure if you
Mhm.
don't do it to join in. It's like, this is a good thing for our society, we're helping the local animals that don't have homes,
Yeah.
and then there's this pressure for people to join in. It's like, oh, this is a good thing to do, the society will look up at me for doing this, so I'm going to join in. And then conversely, the same thing the other way around. It's like, if there's behavior that you engage in that is deemed as negative in society and you feel that outside pressure, then you feel like you shouldn't do those things. And then
Hmm.
unfortunately, what happens for a lot of people is they stop there. They stop where it's the law and order and social rewarding. That's
Yeah.
all they need. And they no longer question morality beyond that point. Some people, like you and I, get
Mhm.
to the post conventional morality, where their morality is now based on personal ethics and principles, regardless of the reward or social implications. So, for instance,
Mhm.
people who join in protests knowing that there's a chance they could be arrested or harmed by
Mhm.
security, police, whatever the situation is. But understanding that protesting for this positive, greater good is the right thing to do, even if they might be harmed or have negative effects come from it. You've gone beyond what the social morality is, and now it's a what's right for humanity, and whether or not the moral implications of that is like, I will do what's right morally, even if it hurts me
Mhm. Yeah.
particularly. It's for the greater good of all, kind of a thing.
It sounds like the post-conventional morality is less inward focused and it has to do with understanding that your world revolves around you. Everybody else's world revolves around them as well, and we're all
Right.
interconnected. So, for example, I want to follow certain laws that keep us safe for not just my own benefit and potentially the social praise, because that also affects everyone else positively, not
Right.
necessarily because I am seeking a reward from that.
Exactly.
That positive outreach and that positive ripple effect is the reward, and I'm not
Right.
looking for me specifically. Like it's not born out of selfishness per se.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly. Exactly.
cool.
It's no longer, yeah, you're no longer, like you said, you're no longer focusing inward about what your personal reward or punishment might be. You're thinking
Hmm.
about the implications for everyone involved. Um, So yeah, and unfortunately, there's a large number of people who never breach that. There's a lot, I mean, and
Hmm.
it's also feels generational at this point, that there's a lot of people from older generations that refuse to do any further research within themselves, or,
Yeah.
you know, open their eyes to the things that they're experiencing, because they're only living within the societal structure that they've been taught. It's not
Hmm.
about other people it's about other people only in the sense that, you know they have a little circle that they're involved in. And so for instance, my own family, they're all very conservative for the most part, and they've
Hmm.
not ever sort of like, you know, breached outside of this idea that law and order and the way that society is the end all be all, and that everything that they do exists within that. They've never breached outside of that post conventional morality.
Hmm.
So everything that they do and say is all based on what society thinks is right, what law and order thinks is right, and not where their own morality and their own ethics lie because they've not
Mm,
questioned that within themselves. They've only questioned what they see outside that society tells
yeah.
them is right. And they're like, okay, yeah, you know what I mean?
Oh, I absolutely know what you mean, and um, my family is incredibly similar. There are different religious undertones
Mhm.
to the way that my family interacts with the world. The laws are the laws, and we should abide by them. But also, there's another level to that where we abide by the laws of the land because God asks us to,
Mm,
not just because it's to keep our fellow people safe. It's mostly God motivated, salvation
right.
motivated, religious shame motivated.
Yeah.
It's more of a punishment based system. Like if you don't
Right.
follow them and if you break them and if you shame your family or you shame the church in some way because you were not a good citizen, then you are ashamed.
Right. That sort of kind of leads us into adaptive versus maladaptive shame.
Yeah.
Um, there's a 2025 article by Cambridge called The Harming Power of Shame that talks about the important distinction between adaptive and maladaptive, whereas adaptive is considered an integral social element because it creates alignment of standards in social behaviors among groups and helps people sort of regulate themselves and fit better in a diverse society. Whereas maladaptive shame is the unhealthy type of shame that often causes a person to have feelings of withdrawal and isolation, to overthink, develop depression, anxiety, negative self identity, and feel
Hmm.
humiliation. Maladaptive shame can cause what's called secret burnout, where someone is hiding parts of themselves so consistently for so long that it literally burns up their social and mental battery, causing further isolation and self doubt.
Wow.
That's something I'm very familiar with.
Did not know there was a term for that. I thought it was just burnout. That makes a lot of sense. If there's
Yeah.
yeah, wow. I can see evidence of that in
Yeah.
my life and the environment in which I was raised, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like most of my personality through life up through my most of my 20s, I was
Yeah.
was secrecy, like secrecy burnout. Like that was my whole personality.
Yeah, it was how do I operate while pleasing those around me and not being outcast while
Yeah,
keeping everything that I know I will be shamed for inside,
right.
turning me into this weird shell of mush and chaos,
Mhm. Yeah.
if that makes
Yep.
sense. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me. I don't know about our listeners, but yeah, I feel the same way. Like I had to keep everything that I liked in a box, a hidden box
Mhm.
with no windows, locked up inside me. And then everything else that people wanted me to be or society wanted me to be, that was everything else. It was like a festering wound.
Yeah, and then that false sense of security that sometimes I would feel with groups of people because I had been masking so much and hiding so much of myself and
Hmm.
assimilating into their culture and playing the part that I was supposed to, I would feel a
Yeah.
false sense of security into potentially opening that box a little bit, which would usually immediately be met with being shamed for it or being mocked.
Hmm.
These, I will put the caveat in there that for several years, I mainly spent time with men
Yes. Yeah.
or male centered women if there were women in the situation, but most of it was men. That was a huge part as well. I had to play
Yeah.
the part of this little feminine lady.
Yeah.
I'm still good at it if I have to. Actually, I think I'd be really terrible at it now. I can't even fathom putting myself back in that headspace, like unless I had to for like an acting gig or something like
Right.
that. Like it was
Or
a
like
role.
self-preservation and like
Even self-preservation at this point, it's just either I will be preserved or I'm gonna get shot.
yeah. Yep, I'm kind of right there with you.
I'm
I'm
gonna
like
be so real.
I'm more in the place where like if I'm in a situation where like I feel unsafe because of a man's presence or because of a man's actions, I instead of being coy and like trying to get
Mhm.
myself out of the situation without raising any suspicions, I would much prefer to go full banshee and just start scaring this man to death with guttural screams and like weird contortions with my body.
Mhm.
Like that's what I want to do to scare people away now.
I love looking at them when they say something fucked up and just being like, hey, the fuck was that?
Yeah. It's like, do you want to repeat that?
I was in some sort of manager meeting at work one time,
Mhm.
and one of the managers said something, vaguely derogatory about his wife. And I turned around and I looked at him and I said, are you dogging your wife right now? And he goes, oh, well, yeah. I went, stop it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Or I look at these men because they bring up how their wife was super into politics and was just going nuts over everything that's happening, and I went, well, yeah, she's losing her rights,
Yeah.
so maybe you should be supportive of her.
Yeah.
Then the manager I was talking to just went, well, yeah, you're right. And I went, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if it's a situation in which I genuinely feel as if my life is in danger, I will do my best to remove myself
Right.
as quickly and as silently as possible. But in most situations in my life, that has not been the case, and I can just look at them and go, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, that's good. It's good that you haven't been in too many situations where you feel that physical threat, you know.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Good. Yeah,
Luckily,
yeah, yeah.
there
Yeah.
have been times,
Oh
but
yeah. Yeah, we've all been there.
an example of adaptive versus maladaptive shame that we have is, say you're telling a rude joke in mixed company and a friend tells you that it's not okay to say that. Adaptive shame would likely bring on a small pang of shameful emotion and a physical sensation meant to guide you away from behavior like that in the future, not because you don't deserve to speak your mind, but because other people in the group deserve not to feel threatened or made uncomfortable by other members of their society. So if the joke was derogatory in some way or bigoted in some way or
Hmm.
even just not appropriate for the situation,
Hmm.
that is an example of someone bringing it up, not in necessarily a way to shame you to shut you down, but to allow you to make that decision to choose post conventional morality and self
Yes.
reflect
Yeah, yeah.
instead of, staying in that state.
Right.
Maladaptive shame would be allowing that shame to grow so much that it not only causes you to avoid those types of jokes, but also the people you said them to, and can lead to negative thought spirals, self punishment, and fear of social interaction.
Hmm.
I've found that maladaptive shame often leads to projection as well.
Yes.
You can project that feeling onto others
Oh,
in
yeah.
order to push it away from yourself so you don't feel it anymore,
Yeah.
and make the others around you either feel shame or you just take it out on everybody else around you instead of doing that introspection and saying, hey, I'm necessarily an unethical person for saying this. Maybe I was just ignorant to the fact that this was rude. Like, I've
Right.
never been called out on it before.
Yeah.
I've had that experience a lot in my
Me
life.
too.
Growing up religious and conservative,
Growing up with rude parents.
growing up neurodivergent, not really understanding, yeah, what is offensive, what is racially motivated, what is bigoted,
Right.
what is ignorant,
Yeah.
those types of things. And I have been called out on a lot of things like that. And it has taken me quite some time to be introspective about that and say, hey, this person who pointed it out is not necessarily trying to destroy my life
Right. Yeah.
and make me hurt myself.
Right. Yeah.
And now, in turn, since I can do that for myself, I find myself doing that for other people. I can turn around and go, hey, what the fuck? And their reaction, I know, is not based on me, because if I'm doing it out of kindness, you could
Hmm.
say,
Yeah.
because calling them out, I feel like, is the ethical thing to do.
Right.
And then if they want to get mad and they want to project and they want to be pissed at me because I pointed out that their joke was incredibly homophobic or something like that, then that's their deal. They can deal with that,
Right,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, that's such an interesting thing about what society has done, whether it was intentional or not, but society
Mhm.
as a whole has definitely done something where people can either look at something as an attack or as help. Like you
Yeah.
said, you telling somebody, "Hey, that was a bigoted comment." If they look at it like they're being attacked, then that's maladaptive shame.
Mhm.
If they look at it like, "Hey, you're right, I'm sorry, like, good call," that's adaptive shame,
Yeah.
like, using that shame to be like, "Okay, I understand that this is not the right thing to say in this group of people, and going forward, I'll do it better," versus like, "Oh, you're gonna come at me like that, blah, blah, blah." Like, no, that's maladaptive shame. You are using that shame for negative things,
Mhm.
and you cannot take responsibility. There's so many people who cannot take responsibility and then in turn
Mhm.
project that shame onto other people because they can't get rid of it because they cannot work through it the appropriate way. You know what I mean? A lot of boomer age people tend to struggle with this. I'm not even trying to be like disparaging towards boomers. It's literally a generational gap. Like
It
they
is.
did not have the psychological tools. And I think you might have experienced this as well growing up because of our parents' upbringings being taught the way that they were.
Mhm.
I was taught that emotions aren't even real. I was taught to ignore them. I was taught that they were a distraction, that I need to bottle them up and pretend they don't exist. And in reality, all of our emotions are tools and we need to
Mhm.
use them like tools.
Yeah.
So,
I had something similar, not in the way of emotions weren't real, but there was
mhm.
religious influence of some emotions being inspired by God and some emotions being inspired by sin, if that
Oh,
makes
good
sense.
Lord. Yes, that makes
Yeah,
sense, but it also sounds horrifying to
it's
live in.
it's so bad. It was like, yeah, if you are, I don't know if you've ever heard people talking about taking your anger to God, or is the enemy, because not everybody likes to say the devil or Satan. It would be like, oh, is the enemy basically making you feel this way or tempting you to feel this way, or it's
They would use the term the enemy instead of
yeah,
like Satan.
yeah.
That's so bizarre to me.
Thinking about it now, it makes it super easy to generalize anybody they want into
Right.
this enemy,
Exactly. Ooh. Shame, 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 shame.
because if it's an us versus them, if you're not with us, then you are the enemy, or
Right.
you're being controlled by the devil.
Yeah.
You're giving into sin. Talk about shame.
Yeah. There was something you said earlier that I wanted to remark on. I just remembered that I thought was so
Mhm.
interesting that are like we find so many parallels in our experiences, but also find a lot of differences with your religious upbringing and mine being very militant.
Mhm.
And one of those is you were saying that you spent a lot of time with men and that you had to assume this fawn position, this,
Yeah.
female, like, oh, woe is me sort of. And I also spent a lot of time with men growing up. It was very shameful to be a woman in my family. Like you
Mm.
would not garner any respect. You could not do anything of value. Being a woman was just bad. And I internalized that. And so I became the biggest tomboy in the world. I was spending all my time with males and men growing up and was trying so hard to be one of the boys to the point where there was
Mhm.
always men doubting me just because I was a woman and I was constantly proving myself. I was constantly winning competitions against men to prove myself. I was constantly pushing myself
Mhm.
so much harder than anybody else because I was like, nope, I need to win because I need to shove this in their face because I need to prove that women have value,
Yeah.
but I also don't want to identify as a woman because I won't gain any respect. So I have to be a tomboy. That's the closest I can ever get to having the
Yeah.
respect that a man gets?
Mhm.
And I think it's so interesting that in your religious upbringing, you had to assume that female position or that feminine
Mhm.
ideals that they saw, whereas I refused to do that because it wasn't religious, it was military. Women are allowed to be in the military and we can do just the same thing that men do and I'll prove it. So I just thought it was so interesting that like the shame that you experienced put you in this box to be this feminine religious archetype
Mhm.
and the shame that I was experiencing put me in this box to be this masculine force that I wasn't supposed to be. And I just think it's so interesting how having similar experiences caused us to assume these different roles based on the
Yeah.
societal standards that already existed for us.
Absolutely. That feminine role was difficult to
Because
maintain because
it wasn't you.
it wasn't me, and you had to balance between being too feminine
Mhm.
and being feminine enough, and then not being being too conservatively feminine because either you were a slut or you were some weird freakish prude.
Mm,
You could never really be correct
right.
unless somehow you appealed to enough men in a way to have them bestow respect upon you. Thus,
Mm.
the people around you bestowed respect. I had to walk that line, and I was regularly shamed for being too sexual when I'm like 16.
Oh my God. I can't imagine how many times you were made to feel like you were being sexual simply for being in your female body.
100%. I had grown men pointing out that they could see my bra straps when I was 15.
How is that responsibility on me that you are looking at me with a sexual undertone? That is not my responsibility. Yeah.
While we're at youth group,
Yeah.
like, you are here with your daughter. Why are you pointing out the fact that you can see my bra straps? Yeah, I have a fucking C cup at 15.
Yeah.
Sorry. The shirt I'm wearing right now, I actually feel comfortable in because I also hated my body.
Well, just ask any pastor and they'll let you know that they find their wives when they become a youth pastor.
Blech, yeah. There's a specific book that I read, which was one of the beginning sparks of being like, "What the fuck?" Because there was this some male missionary, and he met this young woman who was 17, and he was like, "Damn, I want to tap that," and and he was like, "Well, that's not societally acceptable."
That's correct.
Like a few years later, I don't know what it was going to be, if they were going to be meeting up again or if she was going to be graduating like college or some shit like that. And he was like, "Well, a 17-year-old, no, but a 21-year-old woman." I think he was like close to 30 or
Yeah.
something like that when they met. So, yeah, I think about that a lot. That's so fucking gross.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads us into if you want to go a little bit about your experience with shame. We kind of already did
Oh,
about your
yeah.
experience, but how it affected you and how you realized that you needed to sort of heal that shame wound.
Shame is a huge underpinning of Christianity. If you are familiar, I am so sorry. I'm here for you. Reach out if you need anybody to talk to, especially if you're kind of in the beginnings of this. I'm genuinely so serious.
Yeah. And send us your stories if you're willing to share them. They can be anonymous, they don't have to be. But if you want to get your story out there, please let us know. We'd be happy to share it with anybody and help people with your experiences.
Shame is used against women in the church.
Hmm.
It always revolves around oppression and being a sexual object. It's
Mm.
always around objectification, not being, too outspoken, not being too sexual, not being a person, but being given worth through a man.
Right.
And even if you were single, that man was Jesus. That
Oh,
man was God
right.
because it's a patriarchal religion.
Right.
A huge part of my shame was also the homophobic teachings. That led to a lot of repression, that led to a lot of internalized stuff. I mean, like, I couldn't even talk about it. I couldn't even really conceptualize with myself why I would feel so panicked when they would shame the
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ plus community. I remember a specific youth pastor literally mocking the acronym. And he was like, "Oh yeah, and there's like a whole bunch of
Mm-hmm.
other letters because it's supposed to mean like something like so stupid."
We keep adding letters because we're being inclusive, you dumb piece of shit.
Yeah, and then I remember another youth pastor talking about how any brothers and sisters in Christ who fight tooth and nail, verbatim quote, against their sin are acceptable, basically. They will be supportive.
That's so insane. The reason why it's like so insane to me is because if, let's say, Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit are real in the Christian sense, I really, really don't think Jesus would be cool with people lying to him about who they are.
Oh.
Because that's exactly what that is. By saying, like, oh, I have these thoughts or whatever, but I live a heterosexual life,
Mhm.
Jesus would be like, wait, so you're living a life that's not for you?
Mhm.
You're not being yourself? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what do you mean you're not being yourself? Knowing the actual teachings of Jesus, I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if the real Jesus was like, homophobia is wrong and you should fight it tooth and nail. He never fucking said that. I'm so sorry. They think lying about who you are as a person is better
Hmm.
than being gay.
And I remember sitting there while he was saying that. I think this is one of the first conscious moments where I acknowledged that I had some sort of same sex attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I sat there and I thought to myself, yes, that's what I'm doing. I'll be okay. Fighting tooth and nail against it. Like, I will
Right.
be okay.
Yeah. You're like, oh, okay. As long as I do that, I'll be good.
Yeah, while still vowing to never speak to anybody about it ever because I
Right.
saw the way people were treated and talked about, just mocked and ridiculed. This resulted in, let's say, sexual self harm,
Mm.
engaging in heterosexual intimate situations where I was forcing myself to try and feel things or to make the feelings go away, being forced into situations I didn't want to be a part of because it was considered correct behavior, whether that was a specific role or going along with my role as a Christian woman. I
Mm.
was put in
Yeah.
situations, didn't want to be in there because if I wasn't amicable, if I didn't do it, I would be shamed. And it would be
Oh
bad for
no.
my reputation. It would be bad for my family's reputation often enough because
Okay.
Christianity works almost like a collective society, a very dysfunctional society, but still it's a very
Right.
collectivist kind of thing. So, yeah, there was just a constant baseline of shame, literally at all times. I can't think about my childhood or really anything before the age of like
Mm.
24
Yeah.
without that sticky feeling coming back. Yeah, that was a lot of my experience. You got anything for us?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry that that was your experience. Before I move on to my experience, what was something that helped you acknowledge that shame and that you needed to like heal from it and move forward?
I started to realize that people, especially the adults around me, were projecting shame onto me
Mm.
when I noticed how kind of self deprecating they would be. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was a big
Yes.
part of it. I would sit around
Yeah.
and they would be super self deprecating because I would dye my hair crazy colors and I would wear not avant garde things, but I would be more artsy and expressive. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it is. A lot of it was adults going, oh, well, I could never do that, or look at you doing that, or I would be almost on display and discussed that way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that I was doing something different. Like, I'm just doing what makes me me and what makes me comfortable.
Yeah.
And I would listen to all these people honestly shame themselves
Yeah.
and use me as an excuse to do so.
Right.
Well, that's kind of when I really started to notice it, especially in my late teen years, when the divide between people tolerating me and actually wanting me around grew
Mm.
and became obvious.
Yeah.
The more conscious I became of being a person, and the more I started to become aware of my neurodivergencies, the things that I kept hidden and repressed, the ways that I felt about myself. And then when I went to college, hearing people disagree with systems, hearing people's opinions on how they felt like they were being mistreated was huge
Mm.
because
Yeah.
I could go, wait, I can I can protest some of this. Like I
Yeah.
can
It's allowed.
I don't have to be subjected to this.
Yeah.
Definitely my late teen years were a big one because I was dealing with pretty heavy depression
Mm-hmm.
that really impacted the way that I thought about myself and I let people treat me.
Yeah.
That's the most cohesive way I can say that. It was a big up and down. There was just so much going on in my head. That's kind of the most concise way that I can put it.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It actually is very parallel to my experiences,
Mhm.
my realization that I was wearing other people's shame for them.
Mhm.
um, I had,
Give me 1 second. There's
yep,
a man standing outside of my apartment and I
kill
don't
him,
know
kill him.
if and I think he's dropping off a package for my neighbor. Yeah, my neighbor gets packages like every single day. Why do you need so much stuff? I judge people. I judge people so hard when they get Amazon packages all the
I
time.
yeah,
Like
I
if you get 3 or 4 packages a day, I'm looking at you like, what in the absolute fuck do you need that shit for?
I judge myself for my consumerism sometimes. There's times where I like go into a store and I'm just like, I need one of these. And then I'll start walking around and I'll just get so disgusted with all of the moments where I'm like, ooh, I want to get that. I want to get that. I just don't get anything and I leave the store feeling like shit. Not because of personal shame, but because of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is how society has been built, that like this is what people do. Like this is people's pastime, is like spending their money
Yeah.
on garbage they don't need.
I do the same thing. Impulse buying is a huge maladaptive coping mechanism for me that I learned from my dad.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm undoing. But yeah, that's one way we can be using shame productively. We can shame corporations. We can shame the billionaires and the millionaires that
Yeah.
are exploiting the working masses. Like that's
Yeah.
good use of shame.
Right.
Whether or not you believe in morality per se,
Yeah.
it's unethical.
Right.
And they need to be shamed for that because they are treating others like less than dirt.
Right. Exactly. I want to do what Jesus did.
Let's flip some tables in the temples, guys,
Yeah.
because why the hell would
Yes.
you turn God's house into a goddamn marketplace? The problem was it wasn't just because they were selling stuff, because that was normal, you know. They were scamming
Yeah.
people.
Right. Which is what every corporation is doing to us right now.
They were just to scam the working class because you were required to make these offerings. You were
Hmm.
supposed to give something, like you wanted to have something to offer God, and they were just straight up scamming people. It was all greed. It was all greed and
Yeah.
profit. And yeah, Jesus said, "What the hell? In
Fuck.
my father's house?
Oh, hell no.
Get the fuck out of here."
Jesus walked in and goes, Jesus Christ.
Me! Me, and just flips everything over. Yeah. There's a story of a woman going into the temple. She has like 2 pennies, very little. That's what she has. Like
Right. That's within her means. Yeah. That's all she has.
she's truly giving of her own volition and
Right.
because she wants to as an act of devotion. And someone shames her, and Jesus
Hmm.
goes, "That is all she had. That is more meaningful to me, to God, than a rich person coming in and making a huge show of tithing thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
basically." And then there was another story where basically it was more rich people trying to scam God out of a tithe, and he like smites them on the spot, which I think is actually pretty dope. I will try to find all of these scriptures and these stories and put them in the description so people can read them. I think Jesus was pretty cool. I'll go on the record and say that Jesus was pretty cool. I like that dude.
Yeah. Jesus is a cool guy.
He had a lot of good shit to say.
We don't care much for organized Christianity or Catholicism and all that shit, but Jesus is all right. He said boys can have long hair. What do you mean?
Yeah. He said boys can have long hair and we can wear dresses.
Yeah.
I want you to be the center of attention for a second.
And talk about my trauma.
Yeah, your examples of how shame manifested in your life. And then I'd love to hear about when you started to deconstruct that.
Yeah, yeah, which is very similar to your experience, I think. So growing up, my mom was basically a single parent. My parents split when I was 6 and my dad wasn't around very often. My mom, because of the way that she was raised, it was like shame was what she used to manipulate us, you know?
Mhm.
And so it was like I felt shame for everything. Even if I did what she wanted me to do absolutely perfect, the absolute most praise I would ever get was, "That's nice, honey."
Oh,
That's the absolute top tier of anything that
yeah.
I I won a county competition when I was in 5th grade. I won 2nd
Wow.
place out of everyone in the county. It was like a calisthenics competition and I
Oh,
won
very
2nd place.
cool.
The very next year, I also got the presidential award for my athleticism in my school, and she was just like, "That's nice, honey." But then if there was somebody at the house, she'd be like, "Oh, look at this award that my daughter got." And I was like a
Mhm.
fucking trophy to her, you know what I mean?
Yes, I know 100% what you mean. I do.
Everything else was used as shame. And so I was masking so hard to try to avoid that punishment and that feeling of disgust and self-loathing that I got from all of the shame that she projected at me. Over the years, it just wore me down, and I definitely experienced that secrecy burnout. I had that
Mhm.
secrecy burnout where I was just like, well, I don't even know who I am as a person. Not only my family, but I don't even know who I am
Yeah.
as a person because I'm constantly trying to pick up all of the smashed pieces from my mom and put them back together exactly how she wants them to be. Like that's how it
Yeah.
felt. And then one day, it literally, I was honestly between 23 and 25 years old before I
Mhm.
finally had that thought that completely changed my brain chemistry, where I was so stressed out. I was in a shame spiral. I was feeling so shitty about myself. And I can't even tell you why. You know, it was coming from my mom, it was coming from my brother, it was coming from, you know, my peers. And I just felt so shameful. And I had this thought like, God, this is so frustrating. Like, why do I have to feel this shame? This isn't even my shame.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, oh my God. They've been projecting on me this whole time, and I've been taking it on as my own. And having that thought is what made me realize, oh my God. It was like somebody else talking to me, you know, like,
It's like that out of body,
yeah,
"I'm not the problem. What the hell?
right.
You are the
Yeah,
problem."
exactly. Yes. It didn't even matter, like, honestly, like, I had that realization, and I still felt like I couldn't release myself from the constant shame that I felt every day for
Mhm.
several more years because, okay, I know that this isn't something I should be shameful for, but I can't articulate the alternative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how to be.
It's difficult to get out of that headspace even if you can recognize it from your personal experiences because
Mhm.
society runs on shame. So,
Right, exactly.
incredibly understandable, and your nervous system was wired to
Yeah.
be in that maladaptive homeostasis. So,
Yeah, and if you are taught something, if you're conditioned to believe something, you know, to be a certain way your entire life, and then suddenly have the realization that that's not true, you still can't deviate from it because it's not replaced with anything. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I've received these teachings my whole life, and I don't know any other teaching. So even if I know this is wrong, I don't know how to not be it because
Mhm.
there's nothing for me to step into from there. Like that's it didn't, you know, it doesn't automatically come with the thought of like, oh well, now you can use cognitive behavioral therapy to change your, like I didn't even know what that was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you realize these things and you're still stuck in it for years until you develop the tools to change.
Mhm. Yeah, develop the tools and you find different avenues. Yeah, like you're saying,
Yeah,
there has to be something if you're going to stop walking on one path, and there has to be an alternative for
yeah,
you to keep moving
exactly.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and something that really helped me, that I'm really grateful for, was my grandmother. I was really close with my grandmother, and I'm named after her. We're both Aquariuses. We just had a lot in
Ooh.
common. And when I was younger, and had moved back to Colorado and was spending every weekend with my grandma, and we were talking a lot about all different types of things. She was a very spiritual woman. And for the listeners out there, my grandmother used to have this phrase, God ain't some big daddy in the sky. And
Oh my
I
god, that's from
love
your
that phrase.
grandma?
Yes.
Oh my god, I love
Yeah.
that.
So so I actually made a shirt out of it, and Teddy has one.
I have one.
Um,
Yes.
but we used to have lots of spiritual conversations, and she actually gave me a lot of books. And one of those books was the Bhagavad Gita, which is Indian religious scripture, for those of you that don't know. And it changed my life. It was the idea that like the way that society is created isn't necessarily how we have to live. What we have to be aware of is our connection to the self, which is God.
Mhm.
And so that's what this book sort of, you know, brings to your mind is like, hey, there are all of these outside forces. There are wars to be fought. There are people to appease. And there is, you know, a spirituality between it all that if not recognize that yourself, the self inside of you, is a piece of divinity. If you don't recognize that, then all of this will potentially, every all the wars and everything that exists in life will destroy us all in a sense.
Mhm.
And we have the opportunity not to do that. And one of the things that it said that really helped me understand to sort of shed all of the weird things, all of the weird conditioning that we gain in our lives was the reference that when we die, it's like taking off an old coat. That
Hmm.
we still exist, our bodies shed away, but who we are is divine and still exists no matter what. And so
Yeah.
that realization that like I am divine, that I am eternal, and that my that consciousness and that God spirit in me is the same thing that's in everybody else. There's no room for shame. Shame doesn't
Mhm.
need to exist in a place like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And of course, like we talked about, adaptive versus maladaptive, and living within a society, that adaptive shame is definitely necessary for us to
Mhm.
recognize how to be better to the people around us. But ultimately, having this understanding that our spirituality does not have to be related to any like specific organized religion or specific God, or it is within us, you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
changed a lot for me. Is like, oh, there is no higher power or being outside of myself that I'm supposed to be appeasing, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
that helped a lot for me, was um, reading about spirituality from non-Christian entities.
Absolutely. Yes. I agree with that as well. Seeing the other perspectives and seeing, yeah, just being
Yeah.
able to experience that from a different perspective that isn't completely oppression based.
Yeah, that isn't meant for control, it's meant for liberation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's meant for actual living.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
What do you want to
mhm.
move on to? We can finish up with, is that kind of towards the end? Yeah, I guess that's kind of towards the end. What's
Yeah, yeah.
something that something specific that you were shameful for that you're no longer shameful for anymore?
Something that I've been working on for a very long time, because this was the main thing that I was ashamed of and made to feel shameful of, was taking up space. I've actively worked on not feeling ashamed of taking up space, and at this point, I have pretty much succeeded in that. There are instances where I still feel uncomfortable being in a situation, or my neurodivergencies are warring with my want to be a part of society. I can stand in my sovereignty and inherent worth as a human being, even though it was heavily discouraged by the authority figures throughout my life. Honestly, it is still part of the societal conditioning that I had to deal with, especially at work. Being an
Mm,
individual and being a human who has thoughts and feelings and can stand up for themselves was
yeah.
incredibly discouraged. They don't like that.
No.
I can't let others shame me for existing. I have to internally validate myself,
Yeah.
because that is the only way that I'm ever going to stay on this footing. Obviously, external validation is really nice, but at the end of the day, if I can't praise myself, if I can't see my divinity within myself, as you were saying, there's really no point, and nothing that anybody else has to say to me matters. I won't believe it. I can't
Yeah.
internalize it. I can't integrate with it. So,
Yeah.
definitely taking up space, coming into my personhood, coming into my identity, realizing that I have always been considered an outsider by specific people because I am an outsider. I am, an antithesis to Christianity. So, acknowledging that, knowing that, and also understanding that just because the religion in which I was indoctrinated doesn't accept me, it doesn't mean that I am unacceptable, and it doesn't mean that I am somehow a moral failure or I'm some sort of abomination. And I'm very welcome to take up space, and I exist, so I deserve to be here because I'm
Yeah.
already here.
Yeah.
So don't tell me I'm not supposed to be here, you know?
Yeah.
All right, would you like to share something you're no longer ashamed of and
Yeah.
something that you're focusing on?
Kind of similar. Like I don't feel shameful as much for taking up space, or just for existing.
Mm-hmm.
I was shameful for existing. And you actually said something that made me think of how I view it, because you were mentioning how we're conditioned to strive to pull in that external validation and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that like myself doing that, trying to strive for all of this external validation in things that I didn't even want to be, it was like shooting flaming arrows at my own castle. It felt like every time I reached for external validation from somebody, it killed a little part of me because it was always validating something that wasn't actually me.
Yeah, I used to have a little person in my head going, "Yes, that's what I want. That's what I'm supposed to want." But no.
Exactly. I really feel like it's like I'm like shooting flaming arrows and I'm like, "Hey, watch this shot." And I'm like destroying myself, my own castle the more that time goes on. But I'm also a nerd, so that's why I think of it like I'm like thinking of it in like D&D terms. But yeah, I like would think about like every time I went for that external validation, I was losing a part of myself and I started to shut up. Every time I would be like, "Oh, I can say something that's gonna like make this person like me more." And then that cognitive behavioral therapy would kick in and be like, "But is that who you are? Or is that who they want you to be?" And I'd be like, "Oh, you right, you right." Yeah, it took a lot. It took a lot to not be shameful for existing and not to reach for that external validation to be able
Mhm.
to exist as I am. That was hard and it's still hard. I'm still finding myself shrinking here and there. And then that second
Yeah.
thought is like, wait a minute, no, fuck that. You know, I'm not shrinking
Mhm.
for anybody ever again. I also feel like there is still a lot of shame that I'm working on around being a part of society. I
Yeah.
recently got a 9 to 5 job and I lost it after a month because I realized that like I cannot operate the same way that other people operate. I cannot accept horrible treatment from people. I can't be in a customer service position and just accept ridicule and insults when I'm trying to help them and just live my life like that. That's insane. And that's what the majority of the world is. People in positions where they are being, what's the word?
Degraded?
Yeah, degraded, abused. It's genuinely every system, like the workforce in the United
Mhm.
States, the healthcare system in the United States, all religious sectors in the United States. Like it feels very much like everything is meant to abuse you. And we are
Yes.
conditioned to accept that abuse. And when we stop accepting that abuse, we are then ridiculed and outcast by society because they're like, oh, well, you're not fitting in the way that we fit in. So get out of here.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm trying to pave a path for all of us to move forward and not use shame as the basis anymore.
Yeah, because if you start no longer operating within the paradigm that everyone else has set for you and the paradigm in which they operate, then it makes them either have to look at themselves
Mhm.
or ostracize you.
Right.
Those are the two options, and I've
And
found that a lot of people don't want to look at themselves
no,
because
they
it
certainly
upsets
don't.
it upsets their status quo.
Yep.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And I
I was
feel
running out of breath.
that's really funny. Yeah. And when people realize that about me, that I am going to upset the status quo, that I find people
Mhm.
will avoid me and like certain people who have not broached into the post conventional morality yet. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Those
Yeah.
people will start to avoid me because I'm upsetting their system, their structural
Mhm.
society. So
You're not following the script anymore.
right, and that's kind of relieving. Like it's very isolating, but it's also relieving because it's like cool. Now I know I will only draw in the people who have the capacity to operate in that way as well.
I also find that at least I found that being authentic to myself and taking up that space allows others to see that as a possibility and be encouraged to do that as well. And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. I really really appreciate when people feel comfortable letting themselves be seen
Yeah.
around me because I don't have the fucking energy to mask anymore,
Yeah.
and I don't have the energy to carry that shame. There's
Yep.
no point. There's so much going on, and there's so much that I have to deal with because of the projections people put onto me still to this day, that I don't have time for that shit.
Yep.
You like me, you
Absolutely.
don't like me, you're gonna do whatever
Either
you're gonna
way,
do.
yeah, either way it's not my fucking problem.
Yeah, either way, it's not my problem. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna treat you with kindness. And if you don't want to treat yourself with kindness back, then that's your decision.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So in conclusion, we don't need to hold on to a lot of the shame that we're holding on to, that there is a small amount of
Yeah.
shame. there's shame used in society in a way to try to help people be more inclusive and,
Mm-hmm.
operate in society better, but ultimately shame can be very harmful, and we need to acknowledge where that shame is in our lives and if it's holding us
Oh yeah.
back, because that's the biggest thing for me that held me back on to get onto a healing journey was the shame I felt that centered around mental health. I wasn't allowed to get into
Mm-hmm.
therapy and that kind of stuff. Acknowledging that shame and how it holds us back will help us move forward.
I do know. I do know. That was wonderful. That was very eloquently put. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to add, or are we ready to wrap up?
I think that was everything. I think we've kind of covered everything, or at least I've covered everything that I can say in this container. At the moment, I am excited to be able to explore so many of the things that we have talked about today in later episodes. But yeah, I think for now, that is all I have to contribute.
Cool. Do you want to set our intention or our blessing for our listeners?
Sure, I can do that. Let me find it. We would like to set this intention or offer this blessing or even introspection for those who are not necessarily spiritual. We would like to wish you a day that is guided by your emotions without being repressed by them, so that you can listen to your intuition and allow yourself to feel, but not feel controlled by them.
Lovely. I have one last thing I want to ask. When you
Hmm.
set an intention or like a blessing for others,
Hmm.
do you have any imagery that you use in your mind to help set that intention?
Ooh, it kind of depends. Like if there's someone who specifically asked me to pray for them, or I've offered to set out offerings or something for them,
Hmm.
then if I visualize anything, it has something to do with the situation. I asked you if there were any deities you wanted me to petition on your behalf for
For
safe
my trip.
travels.
Yeah, yeah.
When I gave offerings and I sat down to petition them, I was just kind of thinking of you having a safe trip. If it's something like this, it's more general and I don't have any specific imagery that comes to mind. It's more so allowing that kind of energy to be put out into the universe. Yeah, that's my answer.
I'm sorry if that caught you off guard, because I have like imagery that I use when I set intentions,
Hmm.
and it's the same imagery every time because regardless of what the intention is, I want it to be backed by love entirely. Whenever I, say a prayer for somebody, set an intention for somebody, send a blessing, I always imagine pouring a bunch of glowing hearts all over that person.
Oh.
And so that's what I use as the imagery because, and as silly as it sounds, it's also like part of OCD.
Hmm.
I'm afraid that if I am setting an intention and there is like a negative thought that sneaks in, that it's going to get into my intention somehow. Like it's a very weird OCD thing that I do. And I think that like by pouring glowing hearts and like dousing this person in all of the love that I have, that I will remove any negative energy that might hitch a ride with my intention.
Hmm.
Very
I like
OCD,
that.
right?
I like that. Yeah, not necessarily the OCD part, but I do love the pouring of glowing hearts. I think that's lovely.
Any listeners, if you have any, silly little things like that that help you with your intentions, I would love to hear
Hmm.
it. I love those little brain things we do.
I love hearing how people connect to their beliefs
Me
and
too.
how
Yeah.
they interact with the universe and whatever they feel connected to, whether, they feel connected to anything at all. My atheists out there, I'd still love to hear your experiences because that's really cool to me. It's very interesting. Don't be hateful. Please don't be hateful. You will be blocked.
Yeah. We ain't got no room for that.
Take it somewhere else. Project it
Yeah.
onto somebody else. Project it onto somebody
We
else.
can talk about the hate that we have. Like if we feel hatred in us boil up, we could talk about it, but no spewing of hatred. You know what I mean?
No putting it onto other people because they
Right.
don't deserve that unless they're, the billionaires.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
thanks for joining us today. Thanks for cuddling up on the couch with us. I hope you enjoyed your drive, your tea, your cleaning.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week and yeah, reach out to us on our social medias and let us know what you think.
So we'll see you later.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Tschüss.